Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. This week my supporters on Patreon voted for Rat King, Verminister, a 2-mana 1/1 with the disappear mechanic similar to Revolt, saying at the beginning of our end step, if a permanent left the battlefield under our control this turn, we get to make a 1/1 black rat creature token, and we also get to put an extra +1 counter on the Rat King. And then we can tap, sacrifice 3 rats, which by the way also includes the Rat King himself, since it does have the rat type. We can now return a target creature card and all other cards with the same name as that card from our graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So the Rat King gives us a way to generate some rat tokens, and then we can use those tokens and other rats to maybe reanimate something powerful from our graveyard. Now, the Rat King also plays very well with cards like Rat Colony or Relentless Rats, which is now also on Arena, where we get to play as many copies of them as we'd like, even in a singleton format like Brawl, since we can return all those copies from the graveyard if we reanimate them, but I opted to focus a little bit more on reanimating single powerful cards from the graveyard instead, since they tend to be a bit more impactful and don't require nearly as much setup. So then if we take a look at our deck breakdown, I've split it up into a few different categories. We still have plenty of rats, a quarter of the deck in fact are rats or ways to generate rat tokens. Then we have a few cards that can help generate additional mana or discount our spells by 1, especially Herald's Horn and Gathering Stone are great here since they also help us find additional rats. And then we have multiple ways of putting a specific card into our graveyard to then later reanimate with the Rat King, so all the various Entomb variants. And then, in case we end up drawing some of the expensive creatures, we also have a few discard outlets to get them out of our hand into the graveyard. And then we've got the actual finishers, and these are all powerful creatures that can swing a game around if we manage to reanimate them. And then, in case the Rat King gets removed or we just want a few additional reanimation effects, we've got those as well. So yeah, that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our rats, or in this case changelings. The Outcast of course has all creature types, including rat, and cannot block or be blocked, so it's nice to have a couple 1-mana rats so we can more easily get to the critical mass of 3 rats on the battlefield that we need to reanimate. There's a Drainpipe Vermin, when it dies can pay a black to make the opponent discard a card, and then we've got a couple 1/1s with Death Touch, the Engine Rat, and the Typhoid Rats as well. We've got the Annoying Vermin, which actually helps us fill the graveyard, so could maybe mill something powerful and can maybe even take something out when it dies. The Link Breaker leaves behind a Mercenary. Rat Out is technically not a rat, but can still leave behind a rat token while taking out an opposing 1-toughness creature. And then a Burgle Rat at 2 mana will make the opponent discard when it enters, so any rat that has an effect when it enters is a bit more valuable with the Rat King, since we don't mind sacrificing them afterwards. And then the Informant is very similar. We've got the Innocuous Rat letting us manifest Dread when it dies, so can also maybe fill the graveyard and still find an extra rat with the manifest. We've got Pack Rat, which is one of our better cards here, since it's not only a great card that grows with the number of rats we control, but it also functions as a discard outlet, so we can pay 2 and a black, discard a card to make an extra copy of this creature, which will also grow with the number of rats we control, so that can be another way of maybe discarding some of our expensive creatures if we end up drawing them. The Persistent Marsh Stalker can also be returned out of the graveyard with Threshold enabled. We've got Piper of the Swarm, which can generate additional rat tokens, can also sack 3 rats to steal an opposing creature, which can also be pretty fun. And then I'm running 10 total copies of a Rat Colony. Some of my previous rat decks played a lot more, but here it's not the main focus of the build. And then we've got Lord Skitter, which can also generate a rat token each turn. Lord Skitter's Butcher makes a rat token when it enters. Again, 2 rats for 1 card is good enough in this deck. Same with the Voracious Vermin. And then Caramonix can also maybe find multiple rats when it enters a battlefield. Revenge of Rats can make multiple rat tokens if we've got a full graveyard. And then Marrow Gnar, another way to generate additional rat tokens. By sacking rats to the Gnar, we also enable Rat King to make an extra token, and now all rats have fear, so they cannot be blocked except by artifact creatures and or black creatures. So that's an ability that we don't see these days. And then while editing this video, I also noticed that Ash Coat is illegal in Brawl, so that's certainly worth adding to the deck as well, maybe cutting an extra rat colony. And then our mana section has Dark Ritual to set up some explosive starts, 2 mana artifacts with the Terminus, which can also maybe bring creatures back out of the graveyard, and Arcane Signet can immediately tap for black. Jet Medallion discounting our black spells, perfect for all those 2-drops that we can now cast for 1 mana. Black market connections is great, making treasure and shapeshifters that also count as rats. The treasure is also a way of enabling Rat King if we sacrifice them, and can also draw extra cards. Bontu's Monument can discount our black creatures by 1 while draining the opponent, and then Herald's Horn and Gathering Stone can find additional rats while discounting them. And then to set up our graveyard, of course at 1 mana there's Entomb, the most efficient version. Lively Dirge will be 3 mana, can occasionally use the Other Spree mode to reanimate smaller creatures. Unmarked Grave can put a non-legendary creature in our graveyard. Buried Alive can put up to 3 creatures in our graveyard, so it can maybe help activate Rat King several times. The Vile Entomber, a 2/2 Death Touch that will put 1 card in the graveyard. And then Final Parting can both tutor up a card in hand as well as 1 in the graveyard. And then we've got our discard outlets with a few doubling up as removal. There's Bone Shards, Bitter Triumph, and even Collective Brutality with Escalate can discard cards as an additional cost. Smuggler's Copter can also loot several times. And then we've got the House Grows Hungry, which is also a removal spell on Chapter 1. And then Liliana of the Veil can also edict opposing creatures with a -2, but the +1 can help us discard instead. And then the big finishers that we're trying to reanimate include Shieldred, which can in turn reanimate more creatures, also has a bit of evasion with Swampwalk, which we can also enable with our own Urborg, so that's another fun interaction if the opponent doesn't have any swamps in play. Sire of 7 Deaths if we need a large creature with some useful keywords, including a lifelink. Then there's a new Armagon, Future Shark, which can destroy up to 3 creatures when it enters, so it can also be a blowout. Hoarding Broodlord can tutor up whatever we want and can still maybe cast it with Convoke. There's Gristlebrains, a band and commander legal in Brawl, can pay 7 life to draw 7 cards on a 7/7 flying a lifelink. Sundering Titan, a great way to punish greedy mana bases, especially if the opponent has a swamp, we don't lose any of our own lands, while maybe blowing up multiples on the other side. And then Valgavoth, another huge lifelinker that can also steal stuff that ends up in the opponent's graveyard. And Summon Bahamut, another way to destroy opposing permanents, including maybe artifacts and enchantments, which we otherwise don't have a great way of answering. And then finally we have a few other reanimation effects, with Reanimate being the most efficient one, and then Persist for non-legendary creatures, and at 4 mana Zombify. And then our mana base also has a few goodies, mainly the fetch lands are very useful here at enabling the Rat King to make a token end of turn if we sacrifice them. We've got Phyrexian Tower, which can also help us sacrifice some of our smaller creatures to make extra mana, in turn also making an extra rat with the Rat King. And then a few utility lands here with Takenuma, returning creatures from the graveyard and milling some. Cavern to make our rats uncounterable. Sanitarium can be another discard outlet. And then a Swarmyard is also perfect here, helping us regenerate our rats, which doesn't come up very often. And 3/3 City can also maybe generate a bit of extra mana if we have multiple rats in play. And then we already mentioned Urborg. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the play, facing Sidisi, Brute Tyrant, so a graveyard deck. Our hand is missing a discard outlet pretty much for Bahamut, and then we can zombify it back. I'll give it a shot. Could start with a Rat King. Although I'm not going to be enabling it anytime soon, so maybe play Colony in case they have a Wash Away in hand. Opponent mills Airtie. And a White of the Reliquary. Alright, so I can play a couple of rats, offer the trade. Opponent takes it. Can still trade for the Typhoid rats, although then I'm not going to get a rat token in return. And a Fatal Push on the Rat King. Would rather recast it than zombify it back. And Generous End. Forest Cycled, grows the white as well. Alright, so replay Rat King and attack, I guess. Opponent trades. And we get a replacement rat. Still waiting on a discard outlet for Bahamut. Opponent now going off with Ice Still, which can also fill their graveyard. And in turn enable Sidisi. And another colony to draw. And name rat. May as well attack with a token, so we can grow the Rat King some more. Alright, expecting a lot of zombie tokens this turn. Start with Sidisi, and then they can still replay a fetch land twice. So that's a lot of cards they get to mill and turn into zombie tokens. Opponent opting for Yavimaya Coast instead of replaying the fetch. Wayfinder will mill a bunch as well. The zombies are black, so giving my rats fear, for instance, wouldn't be particularly helpful. So we definitely need to go over the top somehow. Caramonyx isn't bad. And a pack rat as a discard outlet, so that's what we wanted. And then if I go for it now, I guess I do get an extra token from the Rat King. So it's probably worth going for anyways. Get back Bahamut. And then Ice Still is probably a bigger threat than Sidisi right now. They're gonna mill a bunch on the way out. Yeah, if I waited, I could have maybe responded to a fetch land, but I wanted to make sure I got my rat token end of turn. And we might also just get Crater Hoofed at some point. Opponent goes digging with Takenuma, can get back the Ice Still. And goes for Colossal Sky Turtle. I'm bouncing Bahamut, fair enough. Can still discard it again with a pack rat. And this might be an escaped Nethergoyf now. So yeah, I mean, if the board stalls out, I don't hate my position. We'll eventually get Bahamut going again. And a Boseiju on Herald's Horn. Doesn't really slow us down. I don't think they have any great attacks. Sidisi's still gonna go for it, since I guess they know about Bahamut. And the rat out isn't bad either. So we want to activate Pack Rat, discard Bahamut. And then I can either a rat out or play Caramonyx. I guess we'll play Caramonyx. It's more mana efficient. Find a rat colony. And then activate Rat King. Get back Bahamut. Sacking these three. Wasn't gonna attack with any of my rats. And then Signet versus Nethergoyf. Probably go for Nethergoyf. Although the extra mana could matter too, I suppose. Another Goyf they can pretty easily replay. And then next turn we can maybe go for another Goyf or take out Sidisi again. I'll take 6. Find a tower, also pretty effective. So I could zombify, bring back Caramonyx, maybe find more rats. That's a swing and a miss. And then I may as well activate Pack Rat as opposed to play a rat colony. Yeah, I can do a lot of things at instant speed as well. I think it's time for the Pack Rats to get aggressive. We can punish that triple block. Quadruple block makes more sense. Although I can still rat out, take out the Wayfinder, and then just let damage happen, as opposed to discarding something to the Pack Rat. Yeah, I'll just do this. And then I could technically sacrifice a non-rat, the only option is Bahamut. To activate Pack Rat, make them both 7/7, that might honestly be better. Strangely enough. Because everything else is a rat. So now my Pack Rats don't even die. And I can still use Rat King to get back Bahamut at instant speed. Yeah, Pack Rat used to be quite the menace in Standard. Still pretty good here in Brawl. Ashiok will empty our graveyard. Although I don't know if we care.
It makes your nightmares.
Seems better to me to keep all the rats in play as opposed to trying to get Bahamut back. Can just sack 3 1/1s to be fair. So it might still be worth it, and yeah, opponent's gonna scoop it up regardless. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Splinter, a Radical Rat, so a Ninja deck. We have a lack of rats, but some mana acceleration and a Herald's Horn to hopefully find more. So we can give it a try. So we can save the Marsh Flats for the turn where we plan to play the Rat King. Opponent's got their Ninja Enabler. Unmarked Grave is excellent once we get enough rats. I think I start with the Signet, so next turn I can go Horn plus a Rat King, which doesn't work with the Medallion. Opponent's already sneaking on turn 2. And that's a good one. Infiltrator will draw a card whenever they hit a player. Okay, so does that change anything? Might want to get other rat in play so we can chump the Infiltrator perhaps and wait on Herald's Horn. So that means go Medallion and then both rats. Could also take the hits. Yeah, maybe that's better, although with the manifests I could maybe find a rat as well. I'll take it, let them draw. And no white mana yet. Possible their deck is just blue-black. Can ignore the white hybrids. Siren's back. And a Fairy Seer lets them scry. And our opponent taps out to go exploring. Mutavault is technically a rat. Okay, so Mutavault can animate itself, since it's not going to be able to attack this turn. And then I can still play the Herald's Horn, because why not? And name rat. Unmarked Grave. And then what's the most powerful thing I can get? Sundering Titan wouldn't be bad, can blow up 2 of their lands, none of mine. Or we can go for a Broodlord, which in turn could get like a reanimate effect, which would also be pretty solid. And it's a big flyer that can block their evasive creatures. Or we can summon Bahamut, destroy the Infiltrator. Yeah, close call. Let's go with Bahamut. And then we will get another Manifest and a rat token end of turn. Shieldred we actively want in the graveyard. Since I'm not close to flipping her face up. So I'll select the Swarmyard. And then destroy the Infiltrator for starters. The creature does enter tapped, so I guess Broodlord may not have been all that amazing. Although if we get reanimates, if they destroy the Broodlord, we would have had a way to get it back. Possible that Sundering Titan, their 2 lands, still would have been the most effective. Opponent did find white mana in the meantime. So we'll see if they can answer Bahamut. And no sneaking this turn. Because they had a Kaito they wanted to enable. So that's gonna phase out. And a 1000-face Shadow can also maybe get in the way. That's a shark and not a rat. So I can destroy one thing, of course can't target Kaito. The Shadow's probably the scariest. And then we can go ahead and attack. Rat King can also attack since we're not activating it. Still probably better to name Rat than anything else. No common type between these two. We'll get to draw 2 cards maybe. And then a Mega Flare can still deal some damage on the way out. Ooh, Biting Palm Ninja can take away our shark. We were still pretty far from casting it, to be fair. Kaito draws.
Now this is a juicy secret.
They could now trump Bahamut. Or remove it. Baleful Strix also a good blocker for it. Still no rants. Alright, Takenuma I can channel. And get back. I guess it would just be a rat since Shieldred. I mean, I guess we were somewhat close to casting Shieldred now. So I could do that. Or I can maybe wait for Summon Bahamut to die and get that back instead. Yeah, we have just the 1 legendary, so it costs 3 to channel. Yeah, I mean, maybe I just go after Kaito, and if they trade for Strix, so be it. Bahamut goes face, the rest after Kaito. If they trade for Rat King, I can replay it. That's fine, I don't think I need to channel. This will cost, with the discounts, only 2 mana, so I guess I could channel and still cast it. And then do I want a Rat Colony or Shieldred? Has to be Shieldred now.
Now this is getting fun.
And then easily replay this, making a rat token in the process. Upside of grabbing the 2-mana rat is that we could have reanimated Shieldred, but next turn I can just cast her. And then the total mana value of other permanents would be 2, 4, 6, 9. So that also threatens lethal. So we'll see what they can come up with. Fairy Seer to scry. Ninja attacks. Yeah, even if they have the Shinobi that reanimates stuff from my graveyard, there's nothing too scary, so I'll take it. Kaito can draw. And now Splinter shows up. Just in time to see the Rat King get in for lethal, I think. Silver Fur Master is pretty funny here. The OG Splinter in Magic. Opponent takes 9. And then I could cast Shieldred, but just an attack should do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Choco, Seeker of Paradise, so birds. Got 2 discard outlets, nothing amazing that I want to discard, and then some cheap rats. Final Parting would be nice if we can get to it, but we also don't have any mana acceleration to get to 5. So I think I can do better. Alright, this one has a bit more potential. Now I just need a discard outlet for my Sundering Titan, and against a 3-color deck it could wreak havoc. So I get to Vista, play Rat King, immediately make a token. Should have maybe started with Cavern of Souls, but then they wouldn't have kept up Wash Away if they had one. Opponent ramping with Farseek. Herald's Horn versus just play a Vermin. Yeah, I guess we play the Horn here. And then Fabled Passage, another way to enable the Rat King. Opponent with an Oracle of the Alpha, shuffling the Power 9 into their deck. And a Bitter Triumph is excellent. Although sadly, opponent only has the 1 land at the moment that I could destroy with Sundering Titan, so I should really wait for them to fetch up another. And then just play Vermin. Make a rat, Fabled Passage. We'll get another, and then I can even do this at instant speed. So yeah, we can just chill. Make another rat. Hope our opponent fetches, and we get to Sundering Titan them. Question is whether I do it now, before they untap. I think I kind of do. So discard a card, take out the birds. And then use Rat King. Bringing back Sundering Titan. We lose 1 land, our opponent loses 2, and our opponent's gonna scoop it up. I'll take it, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing the Mindskinner, so mono blue mill could play to our advantage, so I don't think I need to keep a hand with Entomb. I want to keep a hand with the reanimate effects instead. Okay, this one could work. Turn 1 Vermin, turn 2 Rat King with a fetch, immediately makes a token. Don't know if I should be milling myself, but yeah, there we go, Shieldred's in the graveyard. Could also start with a Piper. But nah, I think I go for a Rat King. Unmarked Grave probably won't be super necessary. Hope this resolves. And then we would immediately get a rat token. And then next turn connections can also pull us ahead on cards and mana. Opponent had a bounce spell. So no rat token, sadly. And now they could have any number of counter spells in hand. Still gonna try the connections. Next turn we can maybe double spell. Alright, connections resolved. So nothing turn 2. Do they tap out for the Mindskinner? They do. Yeah, I'm down to select all 3 modes here. Our life total shouldn't be under a ton of pressure. And then now treasures are also a great way to enable the Rat King to make a token. So I could go Gathering Stone into a 1 mana Rat King, for instance. Sounds appealing. Find a rat. Marinar's a pretty good one. And then if they mill something juicy, I can reanimate it with a Rat King next turn, perhaps. At the very least, there's a Shieldred. Alright, so our opponent's gonna imprison our commander for good. So won't have access to it anymore. So drawing a different reanimation effect would be helpful. Well, Hoarding Broodlord could find to reanimate. Although now our life total might be in a bit of danger. So let's see. Can play Takenuma. Cast a Broodlord with Convoke. Convoking out just reanimate, which can get back Shieldred. They'll have to sacrifice Sage of Mysteries. Seems like an okay starting point. Versus play a couple Rat Colonies and Marinar and just attack with Fear to try and close out the game that way. Because yeah, Shieldred, opponent can sack the Sage. I don't know if that's super helpful. So maybe we prefer the more aggressive line. So these all have Fear, meaning our opponent can block unless they have artifact creatures or black creatures. So next turn we could just have lethal. Water Crystal to enhance the milling. But yeah, this is not going to be enough. Reveal another rat. They do technically have 2 mana here with the Water Crystal. So not sure what I need to play around. Okay, maybe Burglar Rat. And then still Broodlords get another discard effect, although they would get to hang on to 1 card. Maybe they have a bounce spell for Gnar. And then without Fear, they can chump a Rat Colony. So maybe I just want to get a cheap removal spell here. May as well convoke with the other rats. So the ones that have Summoning Sickness can be tapped. And then I could still get an answer. like Galactic Brutality, for instance, which I can cast with Escalate. Target my opponent, take out Sage, target my opponent again, tapping the Broodlord and our floating mana, and then discard 2 cards to escalate. Opponent had a slip out the back on the Mindskinner, and a quick study to draw 2 cards. So yeah, that should do it. Sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Hope of Ghirapur, a colorless deck. Should be interesting. Beatdown with Rat Colony could be a decent plan, but pretty far from using these effectively, since we don't have a discard outlet, so I'll take a mulligan. This might be a bit more balanced. And then Phyrexian Tower is a good way to ramp out our more expensive spells. Don't mind a turn 1 rat. Alright, and Outcast is actually not bad, because now I can attack, and then use Phyrexian Tower to both play Rat King and Outcast, and get an extra rat. And then now we won't have any difficulties enabling Phyrexian Tower going forward, which in turn keeps enabling the Rat King. But our opponent is ramping here, so we have to be careful. Converter to draw and discard. Discarding an Ulamog. Okay, so can attack. Don't have any huge creature to discard and reanimate. I could start attacking the opponent's hand with Liliana. So that's maybe not a bad plan. And then I guess there's no real need to use Phyrexian Tower this turn.
No more distractions.
Discarding
You won't be outside.
maybe a Rat Colony. Because Final Party I can use to stock up my graveyard to set up the Rat King to reanimate. If we draw another land next turn. And Informant complements Liliana's discard plan, even though it does now get exiled by the Converter. So it's a little bit less effective. So they can now use a Converter to either make Treasure or make a 2/2 token at the moment. Simulacrum. Okay. So now I could Final Parting and get something juicy in the graveyard. Rat King can also sacrifice itself, by the way, but let's see here. What's the most powerful thing we can bring back? Could be our own Summon Bahamut, which can go after the Converter. Could go for Gristlebrand just to draw a bunch of cards. Sundering Titan's not very effective in this matchup. So maybe this Summon Bahamut. And then our other card could be maybe just a ramp card, like a Jet Medallion. Sure. Medallion in hand. And then Liliana pluses. Honestly, could get rid of the Medallion. I don't think I'll really need it. Keep the Informant as an extra rat. And then Rat King will grow, being able to protect Liliana to maybe set up an ultimate. So the Rat King could now also activate at instant speed to get back Bahamut if needed. They're up to 6 lanes. And the 1 ring to protect them, fair enough. So if they attack Liliana, the plan would be to double jump, sack 3 rats, take out the converter, I think. But our opponent's gonna stay put. So then I don't think I need to sack the Rat King itself. Alright, the Future Shark's not bad either. Can discard it with Liliana. And bring it back with Zombify. And then I may as well sack something to the tower to grow the Rat King some more. One, two, three. And then there's no point in attacking with the 1 ring out. Opponent converts, makes another 2-2. So yeah, the card drop from 1 ring does offset the discard from Liliana somewhat. But yeah, hopefully we can set up the ultimate now. And Dreamstone Hedron. Probably what I want to destroy with Bahamut now. Although we probably want to wait on the ultimate first. And yeah, opponent's not going to be able to beat the -6, splitting their permanents in half. Could maybe make it so... Well, we probably separate the 1 ring from the Hedron. But at the very least I want to make it tempting for them to keep the Dreamstone, and then once they keep it, as opposed to maybe a few extra lanes, we can bring back Bahamut to blow it up, and then from there we should have a pretty easy time closing out the game. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Maralen, so Elves. Our hand is just missing maybe a reanimation effect, but I think we'll be able to make enough rats where we can rely on the Rat King. Can certainly expect some 1 toughness creatures that we can rat out. The fetch makes another rat token, and then we've got the informant. So then we either want a discard outlet for Valgavoth, or we can just cast Unmarked Grave to get something, and then reanimate it. So I wouldn't mind seeing a turn 1 Lenor Elves, as we'll be able to take it out. Just a tap land from our opponents. Still gonna use the fetch to get the extra rat token. And then we'll see if we need to rat out or play the horn. Well, Bloom Tender's like the perfect target here. So we'll maybe start with the informant, hang on to Unmarked Grave until next turn. Make them discard before knowing that Bloom Tender's gonna perish. Although could have technically already reanimated something to play around removal on Rat King, since we would have gotten another rat end of turn. Alright, and then now I just need to get the most powerful non-legendary creature that we can then reanimate. Summon Bahamut is quite tempting. Could also Broodlord, get a removal spell that helps me discard Valgavoth. But I kind of like Bahamut. And then use Rat King, sacking 3 rats, get it back, and our opponent's gonna throw in the towel. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Lurrus, a black-white. Can recur cheap stuff out of the graveyard. My hand is reasonable. Just need to hit one more land drop for connections, and then Entomber can set up something powerful. Save the fetch lands for the Rat King. Milling 2 lands is not ideal. Hexmage, okay. Still drew a land, so get to play the Rat King, make a token. And then I'm not super interested in trading for Hexmage. Could take it out with a -1/-1. Soul Warden will gain them some life, and an Oversold Cemetery. If they have 4 or more creatures in graveyard, they get to return 1 to hand. That's fine. So connections is probably the move now. Knowing Vermin could attack, so could the Rat token, honestly, since if they block it with Hexmage, I just get another in return. Play connections. They do gain a life of Soul Warden, but we also get an extra counter, so that seems worth it. Eternal Pilgrim. And now Sundering Titan. We'll have to take a look at the opponent's mana base. They have a Plains and a Swamp, so that's convenient. Yeah, let's go all 3 modes for now. So I could use Liliana as a discard outlet for Sundering Titan. And then still play another Rat out. Setting up the Rat King. Maybe I start with the Informant. They can use Hexmage to remove Liliana, but not until after I've activated it.
My phone, and I don't appreciate it when people touch my things. Don't overthink things.
Okay, and then, yeah, activate Rat King. Bring back the Titan. And take out Soul Warden, since they could sack the Hexmage in response. And blow up 2 lanes. And since they have a swamp, I don't need to blow up my own. That was a pretty good turn. And now with Violent Tumor, we can search up something else juicy. I'll maybe slow down on making additional creatures, since it is pretty pricey. Fabled Passage, another way to enable the Rat King. Although the treasures would also work. And now what's the most powerful thing I can get? Something like a Volgavoth maybe, or just destroy all 3 of their creatures. Also sounds good. And then I can play another Rat out. And yeah, bring it back, blow up all your creatures, attack for a healthy amount of damage, and then next turn probably get there. So yeah, we got to see this Rat King Reanimator deck in action, and I'm pretty happy with where it ended up. It's a deck that can sometimes just win with Rat Colony Beatdown, but unlike the Marinor Commander decks, at least it's got the alternate game plan of reanimating some powerful creatures, which can help out when the opponent's got a good answer to your smaller rats, so you're not necessarily dead to the first sweeper the opponent plays. So yeah, this seems like a fun and powerful alternative to the other Rat commanders that we've already had for a while, And in case you missed it, over on the official MTG Arena YouTube channel, I posted a green-white Reese doubling tokens deck where I had a lot of fun making lots and lots of creature tokens, so check that out if you haven't already. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.